The Formula One circus comes to Mexico for the first time since the 2016 MyDriver season, and all of the teams know they'll face a tough challenge tackling the circuit's long straights and high tire wear. Following what can only be described as a disaster weekend for the Jaguar racing team, the team were seen to be on edge and in a frosty mood in the paddock on Thursday, with both cars suffering the same fatal issue, which is yet to be fully identified and resolved, meaning their cars are essentially ticking time bombs until they do. The paddock has been pondering if both Aarava and Van Dorn's patience are wearing thin, and Aarava especially going on the attack, saying his team need to do better as the reigning Constructors' champions. Another driver not in the best of spirits is Max Verstappen after he was cruelly stripped of his dominant victory across the line due to a speeding penalty. He and indeed the entire Audi team come to Mexico wondering when their bad luck will end. And compounding Audi's misery, Ferrari have gone from strength to strength, with both Leclerc and Giovinazzi looking strong in Friday practice. Likewise, all four Chevrolet-powered cars of the Haas's and Red Bulls also looked likely to contest for good points. Both teams are still very much pushing each other in different development areas in order to be the best team carrying the American power unit. But heading into the rest of the race weekend, with the cars being so vastly different to when they last came to this circuit, there's sure to be some surprises and a lot of work to do for the teams. It's time now to take a look at the starting grid for the 2021 Mexican Grand Prix, and it's a prancing horse at the front as Charles Leclerc monsters the field as the only driver in the 116s and snatches pole position by nearly a tenth of a second to Max Verstappen's Audi, a monstrous gap by recent standards. Row 2 features another Audi and Ferrari, but in the reverse order from the front row, with Sainz setting an identical time in qualifying to Giovinazzi, but doing it earlier in the session, which means Antonio will have to settle for P4. A tenth behind them comes the Jag of Aarava, but only narrowly, as Pascal Wehrlein slots in alongside him on row 3, just 11 thousandths slower than the Brit and much higher up than we've seen in recent races. Stoffel Van Dorn might be starting just 2 positions behind his teammate, but was a shocking 3/10 off the pace of the current championship leader and was only narrowly faster than the lead Red Bull of Pierre Gasly. Once again, Nico Kari will be starting the race from directly alongside his teammate from 9th position, and after a miserable Saturday, it's P10 for Nico Hülkenberg, who has certainly become accustomed to a better position for qualifying in recent races. Starting from just outside the top 10 is the Mercedes cars, once again with Vettel leading Schumacher, although with an almost 10th-and-a-half gap between the two of them. Daniel Ricciardo is still struggling with his McLaren at almost a full second off the pole position time, but can take some comfort in knowing he was only a few hundredths off Schumacher. He's joined on the 7th row by the Renault of Jack Aitken. Esteban Ocon has managed to get the better of his teammate once again, starting from 15th ahead of Russell, who got the better of his teammate for once, while the struggling Bottas and Perez could only manage the 9th row. The real surprise, however, was the 19th place for Sophia Flörsch after a miserable result in Hungary, and not so surprisingly, she will be joined by the still struggling Lando Norris for McLaren in the final spot on the grid ahead of the 2021 Mexican Grand Prix.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to my F1 MyDriver Career Mode, episode number 7 today for Season 7 at the Mexican Grand Prix. For the first time since Season 1, we return here to Mexico, and following what was can only be described as a bit of a disaster episode last time out for us as a team, Jaguar, myself, and Stoffel Van Dorn, we need to pull our socks up here and try and get a result at Mexico, and we've done a decent job in qualifying, but here are the driver standings after last episode. If you did miss that, by the way, be sure to go check it out before you see this one. MyDriver Career Mode uploaded every single Friday evening if I can help it. Unfortunately, there was one week where it was delayed till the Saturday, but usually it's every single Friday, so be sure to come and check the channel page out around 7 PM UK time, usually on every single Friday for one of these episodes. But yeah, this is how the standings look now. Ferrari in the driving seat of the constructors there, ahead of ourselves, with Red Bull not too far off and looking very good still ahead of Haas Chevrolet. So lots of interesting developments after last episode, and probably some more to come after this one, because Mexico having such a long main straight, there's definitely going to be a lot of overtaking and slipstreaming going on, and there's still some big question marks over the pace and form of teams like Ferrari and Audi, and obviously now after last episode ourselves at Jaguar here with a bit of reliability issue. But here we go then to 5 red lights to the Mexican Grand Prix. Round number 7 of the season is underway from P5 on the grid. It's a good getaway for us, but an even better one there for Carlos Sainz. He looks to slipstream the pole man Charles Leclerc. Verstappen's already got a great start, and he's up into first place by just a nose, but they go 3 wide towards towards turn 1. We've got Giovinazzi, our main rival in championship so far, on our right-hand side. We try our best to maybe hang it to the outside there. Pierre Gasly overtakes Van Dorn into turn 1. They're still going three wide there, the two Audis, and Leclerc is pushed out though by Verstappen, and he's down to P4. He's lost a lot of momentum there. We could nip to the left-hand side as his teammate Giovinazzi is up into P3. It's Carlos Sainz that leads the way from Verstappen, and we're just going to get this, open up the steering wheel into the entry of that chicane as we enter the first kind of stadium section. We're up the order into P4 then, and actually looks like now Charles Leclerc, the man off pole, is struggling and falling back away in this Grand Prix, and he's fighting off Pierre Gasly for P5 then. Looks like Gasly's actually got it down the inside, so steady improvements from Red Bull all season long. It looks like they're still trying their best to take it to the top, guys, and Leclerc just about gets it on Gasly there, but he's still stuck in behind through the S section, so he might get a good run. That's the Chevrolet power coming into play versus the Ferrari down the inside of that right hand as they enter the main big stadium section at the end of this lap, and Gasly is up the order into P5. Already a bit of a gap to the top 4 then, but a great fight there from Pierre to get up there ahead of one of the Ferrari cars, and indeed the pole man there. As we move on to lap 2 at the end of it, onto lap 3, it looks like Leclerc's got some sort of issue, maybe just like Giovinazzi had maybe at Hungary, as he's going quite slow here compared to his teammate. Now you've got Nico Hulkenberg, who's made a stonking start from what was at the bottom end of the top 10 there in qualifying yesterday on Saturday, to now make a move for what the P6, no DRS quite yet, so just pure power down the inside of turn 1, and Nico will get that, so the German up the order. Meanwhile, his other compatriot Pascal Wehrlein a little bit down the order, had a really poor start there from what was right next to me on the grid in P5, and so now we move through the last corner at the end of lap 3. We're back to focusing on us, and we're having a go maybe at Giovinazzi at the end of this straight, because we've got the rich mix, we've got the DRS now, and we've got the momentum, and this is exactly what I was saying now. Just such a long straight, you're gonna get the speed, even if the engine's a little bit down on power compared to the Ferrari car here with the Jaguar power. We can try and make a move around the outside. This will turn to the inside though, remember, for turn 2, but don't even need to worry about that. We've already made the move before we enter that second turn, and we're up into P3, and now we can maybe see if we can chase after the Audis. Probably going to be a tough ask really, because you can see they've got some decent pace down the straights, as you would expect with the Audi power unit being the best ever since they entered the sport really, but at the moment it's Carlos Sainz leading the way from the 1-2, but we've seen plenty of time this season so far. The Audis haven't been the most consistent, so let's see if this is maybe the time now. Round number 7, 7th time lucky maybe for the Audis to come home and bring through their first win this season. I can't really believe I'm quite saying that. They haven't got a win yet. Meanwhile though, on lap 6 we've got Pierre Gasly on a charge and continuing to try and overtake Ferrari cars in this race, and that's the second Ferrari of the afternoon. Antonio Giovinazzi, of course, he's a one-time former teammate from season 4 Italy, when Giovinazzi got promoted to Red Bull for one race there, and Gasly is up the order, so both Ferraris falling back in this race surprisingly after showing some great pace in practice, and obviously having enough pace to be on pole with Charles Leclerc. So maybe the luck this time round is falling to the laps of these guys. Audi, Carlos Sainz still leading the way with Verstappen not too far behind, but we're also keeping them honest in third place there. But as Sainz goes round the final corner, then Verstappen is going to come in on lap 7, as will I as well. So both myself and Verstappen thinking for a bit of an earlier pit stop to get an undercut. Of course, as has been mentioned in practice, obviously very high tyre wear here at Mexico naturally, but even more so with this year's regulations, and obviously the Jaguar car has not been so kind on its tyres so many times before. Myself and Van Dorn have had to make extra pit stops compared to other teams, and so I think today may be the same case, but I'm kind of pleasantly surprised that Verstappen's also come in at the same time as us. We strap on another set of ultra soft tyres, as does Verstappen, so I'm kind of optimistically buoyed by that decision by Audi, because it looks like maybe Verstappen is trying the exact same strategy as I may do this afternoon with a lot of ultra soft tyres and completely avoiding the soft compound of tyres, which Esteban Ocon is up ahead, and you can see why I might be avoiding that, because you can see the pace or the lack of pace really that he's got through that S section. Although they may be a little bit more durable, they really are quite a lot slower than the ultra soft tyres, and then factoring in the tyre wear that this car has on us, especially on the rear end, I think the best way for us to go is probably aggressive, and Verstappen going the same way, so we'll be seeing a little bit more of him hopefully in this race. But for now, he's got the jump on us, and you can see he's waltzing away down the straight and getting through the traffic up ahead. We can see now Daniel Ricciardo into the pit, so we'll get ahead of him. But speaking about traffic, here you go. Verstappen does meet some traffic. We've got the other Williams car of Sergio Perez, I think this is, and then you've got a Renault, and then both monster rehab cars are trying to overtake. Meanwhile, I've also got to navigate one McLaren. So although myself and Verstappen may have got a theoretical undercut here, as this is Carlos Sainz going through the final corner on lap 9, 2 laps later to come in, the fact that we got hit with a bit of traffic may hinder us. And meanwhile, we've got Pierre Gasly now and Antonio Giovinazzi, that is, taking the 1-2 of the race. Gasly into the lead and Giovinazzi closely following behind in second place with DRS wide open. So the Ferrari car is trying to close up as best he can to the Red Bull. Then you've got coming across the line as well the likes of Hulkenberg, the 2 monster Mercedes cars, and actually one of them is being attacked by a Renault. I think it's Jack Aitken. Yes, it is Jack Aitken down the inside of Sebastian Vettel, the 5-time world champion. He's going to be potentially overtaken by the rookie here, and Renault talking so much of the last few races about steadily improving and looking ahead to try and close the gap to the likes of McLaren and BMW Williams. And there you go, at the moment showing some brilliant pace on this first set of tyres there, with Jack Aitken making the move and making it stick ahead of Sebastian Vettel. Meanwhile, back to our POV across the line now on lap 11, and only now I think are most of the guys making their pit stop. So I think a lot of people are potentially trying a bit of a more conservative strategy compared to the likes of myself and Verstappen, although we're up into P13 already and Verstappen P12. Still got to navigate some traffic, but all these cars up ahead that Verstappen is trying to navigate, and lots of Carlos Sainz can see up the road, all of them on either soft tyres or super soft tyres, so they definitely have to pit at some point in the next few laps. We've got yellow flags though behind us as someone has parked up at turn 1, and it's, no, you're kidding me, it's Stoffel Van Dorn. Stoffel Van Dorn, our teammate, has retired from the Mexican Grand Prix, and that is, well, I'm just taken aback there. Now, we got a double retirement last episode, and now Van Dorn's retired again, and it looks like out the pit lane on a replay, it is indeed going to be a mechanical failure on the car. It's not going to be him crashing with anyone. So for the second time in a row now, there's a fault on Van Dorn's car, and that's very worrying. Yeah, he parks up there at turn 1, and that is quite worrying for not only the team but also me specifically, because last episode we had a double retirement. This episode we've already got 1 out of 2. This does not spell good news. And last episode, remember, the team never found out what was wrong with our cars, and so this same problem could come back again. So okay, this race just got a bit more nervous for me in terms of getting to the end of this race now. But let's see, we're going to have to push on. But now we move back to lap 12, and it's a move for Carlos Sainz down the inside. He was the race leader, remember, so even the race leader has been caught up in some traffic there. He's also an ultra soft tyre, so a lot of cars going aggressive in this race, apart from the guys who are still out there in the lead of this Grand Prix. I think the likes of Gasly, again, are trying a very audacious, as they have done before, Red Bull, trying maybe at one less stop than most guys, as now we come on through into lap 12 at the end of it, and we're getting really now hounded and caught up there by the traffic, because Giovinazzi now is right up my chuff. But look at that, Giovinazzi is now behind me. Remember, we've both made 1 pit stop so far in this race, and now I'm ahead of him. So the undercut has actually worked, and the pace of the ultrasoft tyres compared to his worn ultrasofts has worked out. But unfortunately now we're getting held up by traffic. If the traffic wasn't here, I might be way up the road compared to Giovinazzi, and you would be saying this aggressive strategy is working off a tree. But at the moment it's a little bit on the knife edge if it is going to work due to all this traffic. But George Russell there up ahead locks up majorly into turn 1, so we gain 1 position there up into P8. Verstappen up into P7 obviously, and looks like he might have a good run on the car ahead of him there. We get DRS off Verstappen to just try and help us get away from Giovinazzi, but that's not the fight I want to look at. I want to look ahead of me, try and overtake Verstappen if we can, but at the moment it's just not working out. Sergio Perez is making that BMW Williams car of his as wide as possible. Meanwhile though, on lap 13, the man out in the lead of this Grand Prix, would you believe it, is Jack Aitken in the Renault, and Sebastian Vettel in the monster Mercedes car in second place. So of course these two started outside the top 10, so they started on this set of super soft tyres, so that's why they're leading the way. They're yet to make a pit stop in this race, but onto lap 14 now. Verstappen's finally had a good run off the final corner to try and overtake this BMW Williams car. Sergio Perez, he goes to the inside. Perez actually squeezing him to the right hand side there, but he's got the overspeed into turn 1. It's close, bit of contact he's actually made there. Verstappen's through. Perez goes a little bit slowly and parks it on the apex of turn 1, so we have to be a little bit careful there and lift off. But just want to note as well, that means due to those guys all making their pit stops actually, with Aitken and Vettel in 1 and 2, that does mean then, looking at the top left with Giovinazzi right behind us, we make a dive bomb to the inside of Sergio Perez, lock up on the front tyre, we make it work, as well as Antonio behind us. You can see he's nipped in through as well. That does mean actually in the pit stop phases then, in the first pit stop, Giovinazzi's managed to, with Ferrari, overtaken Pierre Gasly, so the Ferrari could have done a great job then to get Giovinazzi ahead of Gasly, and those two are actually the ones right behind us up my gearbox as we look on now once again to Verstappen making another move into turn 1. This time on Valtteri Bottas, the first of the Renault cars he might be seeing this afternoon, with Jack Aitken obviously leading the way, and he's made a very similar move to the inside, and again being brake checked by another slow car. Obviously this is all for position, so they have every right to fight for it. There's no blue flags involved. But just getting a little frustrated here, and you can see already in the bottom right, this Jaguar car very thirsty for fuel ever since the start of the season, and we're already critical on fuel, but we make a diving move to the inside, very late lunge to the inside of the fin there, Valtteri Bottas, and yeah, thankfully he gave us enough room, and he's actually given enough room to Giovinazzi once again, so Antonio really has to thank me for 2 of the moves he's made in this Grand Prix so far, because I keep just handing them to him on a plate. And as we move on to lap 16 now, he's not going to thank me, he's actually been quite cruel now, because he's got DRS and he's got a good run here, and he's got the slipstream in the second phase of the main straight. Here he comes now, pull to the right hand side, we squeeze him to the right aggressively as we can. We're going to pull back to the racing line, try and get a nice wide line to swing it around the outside. We will get that, but into turn 2 he's still got the room, he's pushed his way through. We make a switchback move to try and straight out the car faster, and we're back in the slipstream, but Giovinazzi is still the one with DRS unfortunately, and Gasly is right up my chuff, but we've got enough speed to send it down the inside to maybe force through a move. It's not going to work out though. Giovinazzi beautifully defends, holds on the apex, pushes me wide, and I'm forced to essentially just give up the position as we go wider and actually nearly lose the place to Gasly. So I've got to thank my lucky stars I actually don't lose 2 positions there. But Giovinazzi with some great defensive work, to be fair to him, in turn 2, and then into that chicane there to get up the order and make it stick. Meanwhile, back behind, this is a replay now. Whilst Giovinazzi was overtaking me, this was happening at the same time behind us. Nico Kari, the other Red Bull, overtaking Charles Leclerc, who's getting boxed in with the Monster Rehab car, and you can see the Haas of, I think that's Pascal Wehrlein, finding it tough to find a way through in this Grand Prix so far after having such a slow start in this race. But Kari down the inside then, and on the exit the Ferrari has a bit of an advantage at the moment, but the Chevrolet power will surely pull Kari through, and so they're going to have a bit of a ding-dong battle as they enter the first kind of stadium section here. Charles Leclerc on the inside, it's going to be Kari in the next inside though, as we cut to the next part then, the double right-hander. It's going to be Kari that gets the better exit off that double right-hander, and he's going to have to hang around the outside and have balls of steel here to make it work, and he has done, and fair play to him. What a move, kept it in there, and, you know, stuck his ground, and Charles eventually had to just lift off and let him through after a tiny bit of contact. Meanwhile now, on lap 16 only now, it's 16 laps, and this is now when Jack Aitken's making his first pit stop of the afternoon, and the same for Sebastian Vettel there, who did fall a little bit more away than Jack did. So you can see that looks like Jack and Sebastian are both trying a very bold, conservative, perhaps even tentative, I want to say 1 stop maybe, which would be kind of crazy in my opinion. I think more likely it's probably a 2 stop here, because I think the likes of myself and Verstappen are going for a 3. So if they were to pull off a 1, I would be very astonished, especially with how the tyres have been so far this season. A lot more tyre wear this season than has been the case in seasons gone by, with the way Pirelli have made these tyres in 2021. And now onto lap 17, you can see also we've made our second pit stop of the afternoon onto another set of ultra soft tyres. So committing to the aggressive strategy, and the same can be said for Max Verstappen. And so we come out in P16 now. 17 runners left in this Grand Prix. Actually, something we haven't seen is Nico Hulkenberg, who has actually retired from this Grand Prix. Unfortunately, he actually parked up in the garage for some odd reason. So a mechanical failure for him, unfortunately. And so that's going to be a big kick to the nuts for Haas Chevrolet, really, as Red Bull Chevrolet, their counterparts, obviously their main rivals with the same power unit, are doing very well in this Grand Prix, obviously, you've got to say. Now as we go down the inside and make a very tasty little easy move on the inside of Sophia Flores there, and we're closing up to Lando Norris now, so really getting the use out of these tyres and having to make up ground here and getting through some traffic. But I think Verstappen may have stayed out for 1 or 2 laps longer, so I'm hoping that this means we can stay ahead of Verstappen now, and we can get ahead of him, I should say, with a major undercut as we go around the outside then of Lando Norris, the man struggling in the McLaren so far this season. He really hasn't got to grips with what has been a dog of a car for McLaren. Obviously, McLaren ways off the glory days from where they were in 2015 to 2017 when they'd won multiple Constructors' Championships. Now, meanwhile, lap 20, we've got Pascal Wehrlein trying to make a move now on Nico Kari. Obviously, we saw both previously. Kari got ahead of Charles Leclerc. Now assuming Wehrlein has as well, and he tried to make the move. It was a futile effort though. Unlike those, Sebastian Vettel now trying to go around the outside of his younger German teammate, and it's going to be uber close as they go into turn 3, but it looks like Sebastian Vettel may just have this on his younger teammate around the outside. DRS open then for him as well to get the advantage in a straight line, and I think he'll get that as meanwhile the Audi is closing up behind them there in the background, lurking away, with Jack Aitken still ahead of Vettel here. So both these guys doing a fabulous job, and Vettel, let's point out, he's on the soft tyres there, and I would definitely guess Jack Aitken's the same way up the road. So both of them are indeed, it looks like, maybe trying a very, very audacious one-stop here in the Mexican Grand Prix. Meanwhile, though, we've got, this is Carlos Sainz now in on lap 22 for his second pit stop of the afternoon there. So he pits from first place. It's Pierre Gasly now to take back second place, and Giovinazzi follows through in third. So something we missed there was another re-overtake then for Pierre Gasly to get back into second place. Of course, we saw previously Giovinazzi retook second in the pit stop phases, and Gasly got back past. So maybe Ferrari will hope they can do the same thing again on the next pit stop and try and get Giovinazzi back ahead of Gasly in the pit stop phase. And meanwhile, though, we've got Wehrlein now down the inside of the Renault, and he's going to make a really nice move work there on the exit. Now we cut away to lap 24, and it has been the second pit stop for the Ferrari and Red Bull guys. And there you go, just like I said, Giovinazzi is indeed ahead. So the Ferrari mechanics, especially on the pit stops, have been absolutely on it like a car bonnet, and they've got him once again ahead of the Frenchman there. So Giovinazzi come out on track behind myself, then it's Max Verstappen as we go up the order, then it's Sebastian Vettel, Jack Aitken, and then Carlos Sainz. But remember, myself and Verstappen, I'm pretty sure, are making one more stop in this race. But this man, Jack Aitken in the Renault, second place, absolutely fabulous. Carlos Sainz has already got the advantage over him, so unfortunately for Jack, I don't think he'll ever be back in the lead this Grand Prix. But you know, he's looking good for, I don't want to jinx it, potentially even, you might say even a podium at this rate, depending on how fast myself and Verstappen and the likes of Giovinazzi and Gasly can come back at him. But meanwhile, though, on lap 25, here is Verstappen around the outside of Sebastian Vettel, so this might allude to how fast they can come back at Jack Aitken up the road, because Vettel, on the same set of soft tyres, is now feeling the crunch and the burn of that tyre wear there, having been on them for such a long time since lap 16 and still got about 11 laps to go in this Grand Prix. Meanwhile, though, myself and Verstappen now are going to have a bit of a fight. I fancy myself trying to overtake Max, as we're using basically the fact that he overtook Vettel and probably got quite happy he overtook Vettel, and then kind of got caught napping there around the outside by me to overtake him. So we're up into P3 for now, but we are going to come in now lap 26 with 10 laps to go exactly into the pits for the last time now in this Grand Prix, for the third time, and we're going to finally strap on a different coloured set of tyres. It's going to be the Super Softs, as does Max Verstappen actually one lap early. He actually came in on lap 25, that was, I think. On that exact same lap I overtook him, I think he just decided to bolt in and come in, as definitely, even though he overtook Vettel, he himself was feeling the tyre wear somewhat. So as we come down the pit lane then, probably was a good idea for him, because you can see Verstappen is back ahead of me as he goes on the left hand side there, and he's up into P12. We're out in P13, so we've got all the work to do, myself and Verstappen, to come back in this Grand Prix. So yeah, at the moment it looks like perhaps myself and Verstappen's aggressive strategy hasn't been the best one. I gotta say though, if it wasn't for all that traffic we hit in stints 2 and 3, I think me and Verstappen would have been way up the order and would have easily been fighting back at the likes of Giovinazzi and Gasly. But the fact we've been held up by so many cars for so many laps now, and I should say really Verstappen was the one bottlenecking me, because I was kind of stuck behind him, unable to keep up with him in a straight line, but he was unable to do it in the corners. But yeah, with only 8 laps to go now in this Grand Prix, the damage has pretty much been done. And so in a race which was pretty crucial for me and the team to bounce back, we've got already one retirement in this race, Van Dorn. It looks like I might only just be getting the tail end of the points here, and so that's going to be quite bad, because if Giovinazzi and Gasly and indeed Sainz actually finish high enough, they could be closing down my lead in the Drivers' Championship. So this could be quite a crucial race in terms of how that standings look now after we finish the 36th lap. But we still got a few laps to go now to try and actually get that tail end of the points. And so here we go, down the inside then of Verstappen on the double right-hander. We caught a bit of space there. Verstappen wasn't really looking in his mirrors properly, and so can we try and hang it around the outside? It will be a very tough task and ask there to do with dirty air. And for now, Verstappen does stick ahead as we go into the S section. Now you can see I'm right up the gearbox there. So we're setting ourselves up for a move that we're going to make now. That's very, very close. Almost hit the rear end there of Verstappen. We made that place and overtaken. Now yellow flags are out due to a car there being stricken. I think that was Pascal Wehrlein, I want to say, but he's going very slowly. So that'll be one more free position actually, thanks to Pascal maybe retiring there as he pulled up very slowly. But Verstappen comes back at us now, as he would do in a straight line with the Audi power on the left-hand side there. And so now I've decided to straighten the car faster, tighten up turn 2 and compromise my run through there, just to get on the power earlier through turn 3. No DRS, unfortunately for me, but Rich Mix is going to try and do it, and Verstappen may get held up here with Sophia Flores also trying to make a move on Bottas. We go down the inside of both of them to make it 3 wide. They're momentarily around the outside of the young German there. Can we just about find enough grip on the curbing there? Round the outside, the double right hand, and now the crowd going wild, seeing plenty of action in those 2 corners, and we're up the order. That's a fabulous double overtake, if I do say so myself, actually, to get those 2 places and get into the points now once again in this Grand Prix. But we look at a replay now quickly of what happened to Pascal Wehrlein. He was actually chasing after Nico Kari still in this Grand Prix, and it looks like on the exit there, it's actually a puncher, so no mechanical failure for Wehrlein. If it was, that would have been a disaster for Haas Chevrolet, because that would have been 2 retirements then for them. But unfortunately, just looks like the tyre wear has hit home a bit too much there for Pascal Wehrlein, and as his rear right tyre got on the curbing, that simply cut the surface, and he got a puncher there. So that's why he was going so slowly on the right hand side. Then as we move back to our POV now with 6 laps to go, it's a pretty easy move actually on the Renault then on the left hand side with DRS open in standard mixtures. We don't have too much fuel to play with here, and so we're up into P8. But Charles Leclerc, the next man up the road in P7, quite some way away, but it's not over there for the fight up the order. And actually behind us as well, Max Verstappen still got some work to do on lap 31, trying to make the move finally on Sophia Flores. Couldn't do it previously when I overtook him, but now he's going to do it into turn 2, and it's going to be close though. Sophia does keep it in there, does keep her nose in, but then it's too much for her eventually, and Max Verstappen will get that, and he's going to be in the tail on the points. And now Mick Schumacher actually fancies himself to try and attack Sophia Flores. Of course, these 2 are former teammates, so how about that? Mick Schumacher in a sandwich of his former team from last season, and so just kind of highlighting how poorly the last few races have been in terms of development race for the Mercedes team as a whole, both the Monster Rehab and the Monster Mercedes team. But now we move on to lap 32. Here to give you a rundown of the top 7 here on lap 32, as it's all a little bit calm for now, as we've got 4 laps remaining. Charles Leclerc in P7, then Nico Kari P6, chasing after Sebastian Vettel on that same set of soft tyres he's been on since lap 17. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kari and even Leclerc have a good opportunity to overtake him in the remaining 4 laps. Then you got Giovinazzi there up in P4, Pierre Gasly P3, both of them equally chasing down this man, surprisingly still in second place. Jack Aitken, the young Korean Brit, doing absolute wonders in that Renault in second place there. But the man who's been dominating this Grand Prix pretty much the entire way, you know, quietly going about his business, is Carlos Sainz here in first place as he swings through the final corner for lap 33. But the action is not over there. As I mentioned, Nico Kari and Charles Leclerc perhaps are going to be closing in on Sebastian Vettel with those worn soft tyres, and they do so on lap 33. Both of them will have DRS on the German. So here goes Kari on the right hand side, then Leclerc is also going to keep up the pace. He's going to gain more slipstream. There's still more straight to go, and Vettel goes defensive on the right hand side to the inside of turn 1. He's going to try his best to fend off Charles Leclerc, but no, it's going to be no use. I think Leclerc surely will have the pace. He gets on the power a lot earlier. You could see that spike in power from the Ferrari, and he's up, and Vettel is going to be down to P7. So unfortunate stuff there for the German. Tried his best to make that one-stop work and just couldn't hold it up there in what was a really brilliant P5 that was. Meanwhile though, in P4 is Antonio Giovinazzi trying to maybe get a late podium here on lap 34. He's had an absolutely stonking run through the S section here, might fancy himself into the stadium section. Round the outside he will on the right-hander. A very unorthodox way to overtake on that right-hander, usually down the inside, but no, he's made it work on the outside then into the hairpin, and the crowd must be going wild for that, because that's a great move to get onto the podium there from the young Italian ahead of Pierre Gasly. Great stuff there for what could be for the championship lead there for Antonio Giovinazzi. Actually, that could be quite crucial for him to get 15 rather than 12 points. Meanwhile though, it's Carlos Sainz that will come through in the last lap of the Grand Prix. As I said, dominated this entire race, just gone about his business very quietly, and he's going to come through for his first win of the season, surprisingly. The reigning world champion from 2020 finally gets a win for Audi in 2021, the 7th win of his career in the MyDriver universe, and Carlos Sainz finally is going to taste that champagne on the top step of the podium. But let's also have an honourable mention of this man, the young Brit Korean Jack Aitken, in second place for Renault. What a story that is, and Renault are going to be absolutely thrilled with his performance, and that for the championship points there in the standings. Meanwhile though, here we go back to our POV as the fanfare is out with the Mexican flags there in the stadium section across the last corner through across the line. This will be for P8 unfortunately, a bit of a day to forget here in Mexico. It wasn't all bad. It wasn't exactly a disaster like last time out, but not exactly what I was hoping for as a bounce-back race. You can see there with Carlos Sainz winning, Jack Aitken second, and Giovinazzi in third place, and Gasly fourth. That's going to change things around quite a bit in the Drivers' Championship, because Antonio Giovinazzi now will take the lead for Scuderia Ferrari with 83 points, ahead of Carlos Sainz, who jumps up to second now with 78 points. I'm 2 points back from him in third place now, so a lot has changed there. And Gasly also only 2 points back from me, so the top four uber close. And so now it looks like the championship's slowly starting to burn and bubble away for a four-way scrap, perhaps, with Giovinazzi, Sainz, myself, and Gasly, if we can keep in it, really, because the Jaguar form has not exactly been amazing for the last two races there. Equally, though, bad day in the office for Haas Chevrolet there, with a retirement for Hulkenberg, and then just an unfortunate puncher for Pascal Wehrlein. They moved down to 5th place in the Constructors. Audi finally get into the top four there and are within shooting distance of the likes of Red Bull and ourselves at Jaguar, with 120 down to 103 from 2nd to 4th place there. And Ferrari extend their lead to 150 now, 30 points clear at the top. So I think that's probably the most comfortable Ferrari have looked since 2018, I want to say, when Sebastian Vettel, of course, took the Drivers' World Championship to become a 5-time world champion in Season 4 of MyDriver. But yeah, very mixed feelings coming away from that race. As I said in the practice at the beginning of this episode, you know, it's just not good enough from the reigning Constructors champions, Jaguar, to be having these issues. You know, 3 retirements now, 2 for Van Dorn, 1 for myself from last episode, and then today, I mean, obviously, yes, partly my fault, but also I think the team also just need to work on the tyre wear of the car. The only reason I need to make such aggressive strategies because the car really chews up the rubber there. So for now, at the moment, it's shaky waters for me and the team, in stark contrast to the likes of Red Bull, who have been going from strength to strength now, and Pierre Gasly's loyalty to Red Bull is finally come back into play. It looks like for the first time since 2018, he's in the actual championship fight now once again, there with that great 4th place there. Could have been 3rd if it wasn't for that last minute overtake there on the 3rd last lap by Giovinazzi. But guys, if you have enjoyed that episode, be sure to smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you are new around here, then get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been aarava. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.